Let's start now. We expect a few other people to come, but they can join us as we move along, just to be respectful of everyone's time. So call the meeting to order. This is the Opioid Recovery and Right Advisory Council. Today's date is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, and the time is 2:06 p.m. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube. Delayed. We'll proceed to roll call. One behavioral, I believe it's not confirmed. Public health may be joining us a little bit later, as well as the courts. I see Administrator Posadas on the call. Afide, buenas.
Buenas.
We have Brian Hahn from Togi, present. Andrea Andres from Togi, present. Speaker Tulahi is in the Zoom room.
Okay.
Dwayne Calvo. Joey Charfaris, present. And Public Defender, present. So we do have a quorum for the record. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, open government. The agenda and meeting details were published in the Guam Post on December 14th, 2022, and published again in the Guam Daily Post on December 19th, 2022. This meeting is being broadcasted live. Publication of the agenda and meeting details were put on the public notices portal, as well as on the OAG website on December 14th, 2022, in compliance with all notice requirements set forth by Guam law. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, approval of prior meeting minutes from the October meeting. If folk could just take a quick moment for those who are present to review and see if there are any corrections that need to be made. Does anyone have any corrections that need to be made? I don't see any corrections. Are we all okay with any revisions? See anything? So if not, we'll just accept the minutes and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is old business administrative update opioid trust fund balance. At our last meeting, the balance was approximately 980,000. The good news is we currently have about 2.7 million that has been deposited into the trust account. This constitutes payments from Janssen, the distributors, McKinsey, and the most recent payment was made from Mallinckrodt. So we have about 2.69 million that is in the bank account. 2.68 million. We also, I just want to acknowledge the work of Deputy Nishihira and his team. We have now, since the last meeting, negotiated 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th settlement agreements between Teva, Allergen, Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens. And between those agreements now, Guam is anticipated to receive an additional $18 million more. So a total balance of about $21 million. Some of the payments are more front-loaded. 5 years is the shortest term, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And the longer ones are Janssen, as well as the distributor agreements for 18 years. We had initially started with anticipating about 12 million. So obviously since then we've had more settlements. Purdue is still in bankruptcy, and that could be anywhere between another $2 to $4 million that Guam would receive through settlement agreements. Any question on the balances at this point? Okay. Just want to talk a bit about the use of the funds, and I don't know, at some point Fred will chime in here. Every agreement that we have executed, so I guess just to back up, earlier we distributed the approved uses for the funds, and every agreement and every source of funding that we have has limitations set and imposed through the settlement agreement. So they all have to be used by court decree for opioid use. So they have broken it down into core strategies, which are the priority, and then Schedule B strategies. Schedule A examples would be expanding naloxone availability, medication-assisted treatment, pregnant and postpartum women programs, treatment for neonatal abstinence syndrome, expansion of warm handoff programs, treatment for incarcerated populations, prevention programs, expanding syringe service programs, and evidence-based data and research analyzing effectiveness. So that's core strategies, and any types of funding could be used for those types of purposes. Schedule B is a little bit broader and is broken up into treatment, prevention, and other strategies. The other strategies talks about work for first responders, leadership, planning, coordination, training, and research. So I just wanted to again explain that we got the approved uses from the court settlements, and then there are also conditions that are imposed by Guam law that entrusts the council to prioritize how these funds are going to be used. Fred, if you want to talk a little bit about that and explain a little bit more.
Sure. So it's very important that the council, whenever they choose what programs to award in the future, that we comply with these priorities. Because what happens is we have a reporting requirement. When I say we, that's the AG's office, that the uses are probably, we also get audit for the use. So the way the settlements are structured is, you brought a lawsuit against us because the problem with regard to opioids. So we want you to address the opioid problem, and this is outlining some of the uses there are. Likewise, to ensure that the funds are used for these priorities, right? We have to report on a yearly basis. Actually, might be 2 times a year, once in March and again in October. Our office has to gather reports. So the conditions need to be met. Otherwise, what we can do is most of the settlements are broken out over a number of years. They may forego some of the future funding and hold back. And worst case scenarios would be asked to repay because we've used it on a program that is not authorized. What we have, Jojo was telling me that what we, which by the way, I want to acknowledge Jojo. He's actually the lead litigator in this particular case or cases. So he's put a lot of hours in, but he was explaining to me too that there is an administrator of the funds overall, because we're part of a multi-state settlement as well. And so there have been some states when it was kind of I'll say on the fence whether or not it could be used or not, where the states have actually asked, we're considering doing this program, will it be approved? So if you deal with grants, you understand that, you're kind of asking the grantor, very similar in this way to kind of protects you when you go through the audit process. Hey, look, we weren't sure, so we asked the administrator, and the administrator had approved for this particular use. So that's the long and short of it. I know there's one other item that's going to be further on the agenda regarding the naloxone. So let the AG talk about it, but I might jump on that one too, because of one of our settlements that will become an issue.
Other questions about any of this at this point? Okay. We had talked about the funds, and one of the things, so at the last meeting, explained that we were working on an application and surveys. We will share that with the group that we put together. Spend some time on that. And the application process, the draft application, was all built on Schedule A, Schedule B approved uses. And again, the idea is if there have already been pre-approved uses and programs that are going to be done without issue, we figured it would be easier for the council to prioritize those and have it aligned. And the programs that I identified, I think we have stakeholders that would love to see some funding and potentially fill some very important gaps in services that we're currently providing. So we will be providing the council with all of those documents, as well as the surveys that we prepared to go out as well for further action. If there aren't any questions about the funds, we'll move on to new business, which is the proposed opioid antagonist legislation. In short, I was contacted by the chief of police because they had an opportunity to receive some Narcan. And it was then that they realized that our current legislation doesn't allow for them to receive or dispense Narcan without a prescription. So there was a little bit of a hiccup with that. We sent a joint request to the public safety chair, Senator Pito Terlahi, a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, that was not able to make it into this cycle, and it probably will not make it in the 36th legislature. So we will also be circulating that letter, as well as what we had put together for further action by the council, maybe to resubmit either as a council or through as a stakeholder once the 37th Columbia legislature is sworn in.
So yeah, especially Speaker, we are dealing with Teva company and their settlement, and in addition to funds, they're not as cash strong as some of the other companies, but they do have product and naloxone, and we are being offered, when I say we, government of Guam is being offered product or money. We checked with the, I think it was our fire department on the procurement. They cost about $200 a pop or something like that. I'm sorry, about $100 each. They come in 2 packs, so $200 a pack. But the amount of naloxone that we would receive, we couldn't distribute it enough because right now the restrictions on the ambulance to be used for private nonprofit companies or organizations that could go out and actually, and quite honestly, even parents or families of opioid users who know that there's always a chance of opioid use can't get the product, is what I'm saying. So we have companies who are saying, as part of our settlement, we'll give you the product that will fix the problem. Remember when I was saying before, one of the primary things that when we're doing the negotiating, the company says, okay, if that's the problem, how do we fix the problem? How can we address the problem? And naloxone is, well, that's number 1A, right, on our list here. So we need some legislative help to be able to have that accomplished, Speaker. And that's why if you could help us, obviously next legislature, that would be a big help. We would definitely, again, work with the council here and get their approval. I think we have the draft legislation, right? Yes. That would have that occur. But it's important because we haven't answered yet. Jojo, help me if you can remind me. Is it every 2 years we make that decision?
It's an election for the next year. So we make an election for the product, and then the following year you can make another election. But the election will apply for, so it's almost like 2 years. So if you elect for the money, then that's something that we have the option to do. but you can also do half money, half product too, depending on the jurisdiction's need.
Yeah.
So it does take some forecasting, but in this case, because we don't have the legislation, the problems with receiving the product is storage and distribution of what agency to go to.
Right, it has, I guess, a limited life, shelf life, right, is what they call it. And so, we didn't want to overwhelm the hospital by asking them to store all these naloxone. But yeah, so right now, that's the dilemma when I say we, our office is facing right now, right? Like, and we're kind of splitting the baby and say maybe we'll take some products so it'll save GovBomb some money, but we don't have enough or we have enough people who want to receive the product. It's just we can't right now because some restrictions by statute. So we're hoping to get that relieved. And we're looking to the council to help us accomplish that.
I know.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. We had at length on this topic, and I'm happy to help. I'm not aware of that letter to but if you could send me a copy.
Yes.
And speaker, if I may, also, I think part of the need too is the growing rise of fentanyl. It's an opioid that is in the mainland. It's a problem. I do know it's made its way towards Hawaii, and Hawaii is having a big issue with fentanyl overdose. There was an article published at the Washington Post a couple of days ago about the life-saving aspects of naloxone and Narcan, the nasal spray, and how it's been saving a lot of lives for first responders who have it on them. So the growing concern, and that's why the legislation is important, is that once fentanyl has a grasp here on Guam, the use of naloxone and Narcan would be critical for first responders to have on them. And also individuals over the counter, if that's something that people can buy over the counter, they can have it on them for people who are high risk for possible overdoses, who don't want to reveal themselves, right? They just want to have it on them just in case. So that's the growing concern in the future, especially with the addictiveness of fentanyl moving across the country. So that's kind of the positive thing about getting the product for free in the settlement.
Yes, I know. That's what we discussed at the last meeting. I know in my notes, responsive fentanyl, and that it was urgent and you would be able to use the product if we were able to adjust the legislation. I remember we were given an old draft of the legislation and you were going to send a new draft, but yeah, I'm not aware of the letter that you sent. So if you want to forward that to us, we will be able to do it. But I don't know, I guess it was sent to somebody else. So if you want my help, you have to send it to me, please. And I'm happy to help. I thought I said that at the last meeting that I'm happy to help. Just let me see the latest draft, because at the time you said I was looking at an old draft.
The reason why it was sent to public safety chair speaker was because it was GPD. They were offered free product Narcan, and because the statute does not allow for them to receive it, they had to turn that away. So that was the reason why it went through Senator Talai through public safety and GPD. So as Chief Ignacio, we're working with his office. And I guess just to clarify, it's not fentanyl is a problem, but it's the lacing of other drugs with fentanyl that is the bigger problem.
Yes.
So DEA has talked about, they are now including meth with fentanyl in it and cannabis with fentanyl in it. And so all different types of products that you buy through illicit means now have the potential to be laced with fentanyl. So it's not just someone ordering fentanyl, it's ordering a product thinking it's an opioid, Oxycontin, and then it actually is.
Is the product on Guam now the naloxone? That
Yes.
We could be using it if we had changed this, like we talked about at the last meeting. But yeah, so I'm just perplexed at the delay. Please send it to me. Let's get it done. We talked about all people who would be able to access it for emergency use, those who are providing these types of services, the police, the first responders. Happy to help do it.
If I may reiterate, Assistant AG Joe Paris, what you had said earlier, that it's not just for first responders to have it available and use it. It's also for private citizens, like you said, that they can access it, they can have it, they can procure it over the counter. And so therefore, receiving it, pharmacists throughout the community can receive these products, these pharmaceuticals. And so therefore, the police, maybe they're just not licensed or certified to receive it because they're not a pharmacy, but the community pharmacists can receive it. We receive it. And so, but if the issue is storing it, is that the issue, Joe? Storing it, or is it's receiving it?
No, it's the storing.
Well, it's a little bit of both, I
Yeah.
think, Administrator. We didn't want to have order a bunch of, and I actually thought would have the potential issue. Naloxone could come in different forms. One is the aerosol that you spray in the nose. The other is that I think the hospital uses it in IV, right? Drips, Administrator. They can
We use
do.
both. We have
Okay.
both.
So I wasn't sure if Tiva had the product that would made it through aerosol, which I know is another issue in terms of what is made available behind the counter. And the idea would not be over the counter necessarily. There would still need to be consultation to make sure someone knows when to administer, how to administer a product. So it's not like you go and you can buy a Tylenol, Narcan still would, or naloxone still would require some explanation from a pharmacist in terms of, it's just you would be able to give it to someone who can justify or say, I have someone who I believe may be suffering or has the potential to be suffering from an overdose. So
There are
Administrator, was a little bit of both. Yeah, we didn't want to get a bunch of product and then no one can get it without a prescription.
But there are also organizations at the national level of the US who go out and teach people, teach communities how to use the product safely. I
Right.
mean, that's another source that we can tap into.
Legislation, it proposes that public health is going to be the one certifying community members to be able and prepared.
That's appropriate.
Is public health rep here? Are they prepared to do that?
We talked to the director about that speaker, and we put them as a placeholder because they seem to be the most equipped. The idea for that was, again, making sure that before we just turn over Narcan supplies to community-based organizations, peer support groups, there's some training that is done.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I know that's a great idea. I'm just asking if they're prepared. So, we've got the equipment and
I think as long
all we
as,
need is
there's funding to
actually-
support it,
yeah.
I think that was the idea. So,
If
and
it's
that's,
ready, then we can hit the ground running, but yeah. There's no public health rep on this task force yet.
no, but we did speak with the director ahead of time about the possibility. We were trying to identify the best entity between Guam Behavioral and public health seemed to be the best equipped.
I just wanted to know if they were ready. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on the proposed legislation? Okay, if not, we will circulate all the materials with the council members. This is my last meeting, so we want to make sure that all the work Karina has put into this, we circulate with you all, so you don't have to start from scratch as you move forward. And again, just want to emphasize 2.7 now, we anticipate over $1 million each year for the next few years. So there's really an opportunity to make sure that money is spent to good use, put to good use. All right. Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
All your work on this and congratulations and thank you on behalf of the people of Guam. I think it's an excellent, the settlements that you have brought in and creating this task force and your efforts to get this money out into the community. Si Dios más.
Thanks, Speaker.